I spoke to one NATO diplomat last night and I asked him about next week, and he said it's showtime. It's time for NATO to prove to the United States that those countries are well on their way to spending 5% of GDP on defence by 2035, as agreed at the last NATO summit. We know this is a major bone of contention for the United States. We heard from the US Ambassador to NATO during the week, Matthew Whitaker, who used the term free riders when it comes to some European countries and American military assets. Also on the agenda for sure will be America's long-term commitment to the NATO alliance, to European security architecture. We know that the United States has pulled a lot of capabilities available to NATO, like B-52 bombers, F-16s, F-35s. And in addition, there will be a real push for the defence industry to basically ramp up production and spend more and build more weapons. Maeve?
And of course, Shona, President Trump has been expressing his anger now for months with allies for not helping the US over Iran. I imagine this topic will also dominate in Ankara.
No doubt about it, Maeve. We even heard from Donald Trump last night on Truth Social saying that European countries abandoned the United States when it came to the war in Iran. He's talking about the fact that some countries like Italy, like Spain, refused access to the US military to their bases in those countries for the war in Iran. The UK did so initially, but then it allowed the US there. Other countries like Germany have always allowed the United States basing rights. So the picture isn't as clear-cut as he said, but he's certainly angry about this. And I caught up with his former US ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker, and I asked him about this situation and Trump's anger.
Donald Trump is always raging about something, and he's unhappy about European contributions, European defense spending, Iran, whatever it might be. But this is not going to be a blow-up of a NATO summit. It's actually going to be quite calm. First, I think he has a good relationship with Erdoğan, and he doesn't want to rain on Erdoğan's parade. Second, he is happy about NATO allies spending more on defense. And I think allies will say something nice about wanting to support security in the Persian Gulf when there's an opportunity to do so, trying to position themselves as helpful. And I think they're also going to try to take some positive steps on Ukraine, reaffirming this Pearl mechanism, the way in which Europe buys armaments from the United States and provides them to Ukraine.
And what of that business of NATO being important for the United States to project its own power globally? Has that diminished somewhat, or is it still important?
Well, so the administration right now likes to say that Europe wasn't there for us. They weren't helping. They didn't let us use bases and airspace and things like that. That's a bit of an exaggeration. You had to ask, and then you could have used them. And we didn't tell anybody we were going to attack Iran, and then we complained that no one was attacking with us. So I think it's a bit much the way that is packaged. Now, that being said, it has become politically beneficial to some countries in Europe to say they're standing up to Trump and that they aren't allowing their bases or space to be used to attack Iran. But that is now, that's a dynamic that was created by the U.S. surprise attack without consulting with anybody.
From an industry point of view, because that's really going to be a focus for the first day of the summit, this industry forum, what is required of NATO countries in terms of the industry stepping up, given the fact that the United States burned through so many munitions, including Patriot systems and so on?
Well, this is a great question because it starts with the money. You've got to be spending enough money on defense to have the capability that you need. But then, as Secretary Rutte has said in his Oval Office meeting, the trick is converting money into capability. You can spend money on a lot of things, and it doesn't necessarily produce defense capability. So getting a real defense capability that you need is not so straightforward. And then finally, we have to learn some lessons from Ukraine. Ukraine has developed high-tech, low-cost systems that are very effective and can overwhelm high-tech, high-cost systems. For example, if you spend a Patriot missile, it costs $1 million, to shoot down a drone that costs $30,000, that's an unsustainable position to be in.